Coming to you live from the shadow of the big house, it's IT4U, tips and tricks on ITS tools, products, services, and more, with your host, Jean Mackey. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Jean Mackey. Welcome to IT4U. This is a live webinar series. Is my slideshow coming through? Good. We are switching platforms. No, it's not. Hold on just a sec here. Sorry. Stop sharing. Share entire screen. How come it's not letting me do that? My screen?
Seeing your IT4U live webinar slide.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. We are switching from Adobe Connect we've been using for umpteen years to BlueJeans. So there may be a few hiccups today, but we'll get them all worked out. If you're having any audio or video problems during this live webinar, let us know in the chat pod. If it's not on our end, we can offer some tips. When you're watching the captioned YouTube recording of this webinar, look in the YouTube description field for a Google Doc with live links. If you do need an accommodation to participate, please contact ITS HR and give us about 10 days. What's coming up is the new box. That's going to be in July. So I did put the URL for my slides in the chat pod, and if you'd like to get the live links to this. Today, we've got Mary Beth Stunkel and John Deal from ITS to talk about CTools project site migration. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch over here and turn it over to Mary Beth. It's kind of loud.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and talk to you about CTools project sites migrations. And we're going to start by telling you about what we're asking you to move to. And then at the end of in the last 10 minutes or so, John will come online and show you how to get there. But the reason for doing it in this order is to let you know that CTools project sites will be around for a while yet. And so you have some time to get familiar with the new tools on maybe a new project or something that you just want to play around with a few colleagues. And then when you feel comfortable with the new tools, then you can use the migration tool that John will show you to get your current content into these new tools. But we really want to encourage people to play around, get comfortable with the new tools first, and then migrate your current sites. So with that, I'm going to talk about Box. So back in the dark ages, like 10 years ago, CTools there weren't the modern collaboration tools that we have today. And CTools, while it was designed for courses, a lot of people found it really useful to use for projects because they needed that same kind of collaboration. But now the university has contracted with a number of different collaboration tools, and so we're able to provide a more modern tools for you to use, and we're really excited about having these tools and want to do what we can to help you move into those tools. The session that Jean talked about that's happening next time about the all-new box will show you the new box interface and really go into what's new about that. And I'm going to be using that new interface, but I'm not going to focus on what's different with that interface. So follow along. And you can use that new interface now if you want. If you need help, you can contact for help. But in the middle of July, that will be the default for everyone. So everyone will be using it mid-July. So I'm going to start by logging into Box. And sort of the simplest thing to remember for logging into Box is to use the URL umich.box.com. So it's the University of Michigan's instance of Box, hosted by box.com. When I do that, it says, oh, are you part of the University of Michigan? Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, so I'm going to continue. If I were one of your external collaborators, then I would click not part of the University of Michigan and log in with my whatever my other box account is. So right now I'm going to continue. And then you see that you're presented with the familiar University of Michigan login. So, and I was afraid of that. It always happens, right?
Right.
Think success. All right, I do have Duo enabled for my account, but I logged in earlier today and told it to remember, so I didn't have to do the Duo prompt again. So now here I am in Box. I have, this is what the new user interface looks like. And you can tell it's a new one because on the left, you have a navigation bar with some links to various ways to view your content in Box. And then on the right is another bar. And then in the center is the content. In the old one, this pretty much the center one was all you had. So they've been adding functionality on the sides. If you see here, you see there's a lot of folders in my All Files view. So in All Files, I have a bunch of folders, and there you'll notice the different colors, and these all mean something. A plain manila folder like this means it's my own personal private folder, and I'm not sharing it with anyone. No one else is collaborating with me there. It's mine. So I own the content. No one else has access to it. The ones that are blue that have the little people in them mean either I own it and I'm collaborating with other people, or someone else at the University of Michigan owns it and they're collaborating with me. So and then finally the gray folder with a little globe in it indicates that someone outside of the University of Michigan has invited me to collaborate with them. So in this case, there's an Internet 2 folder that I've been invited to collaborate in, and so it shows up as a gray icon. That's particularly important if you're dealing with sensitive data, because you really want your sensitive data to be held in University of Michigan folders, not folders owned by other institutions, because you don't know what their practices are and what their legal assurances are. So you really want to be careful about that. Let's see, I have some notes over here. So in some ways, you can think of these folders as similar to CTools project sites. So like a CTools project site, every one of these folders indicates a relationship with a bunch of people to do work together. So for example, this collaborate folder is what we call a shared account. And if I open that one up and I look over here to the right, it says that the owner is Collaborate. Collaborate, if you notice, if you're very perceptive, you will notice that Collaborate is a name that's more than 8 characters long. So it's not a unique name. If this were shared by an individual, it would have their name in there. You know, Mary Beth Stunkel would be in there if it was a folder I had invited you to collaborate with. So it tells you right off the top who the owner is, and then who are other people that have various levels of permissions in the folder. So you could think of this as a CTools project site. And in fact, because it's a shared account, in other words, it's not owned by an individual, but rather by a group of people, it's like a CTools project site. If the person who started the site or contributed heavily to it moves away to a new job or a new, they won the lottery and they quit the university, then nothing happens to the content in that folder. That folder is still owned by the University of Michigan, and all you need to do is remove that person's access. For example, if I click here, I can say remove Rita's access, and then put in the next person that you want to replace Rita in that position. So the shared accounts make it very easy to maintain the content and keep it all within the University of Michigan. So let me turn to this. I should have said this in the beginning, but let me say, if you have any questions about things I'm doing along the way, please don't hesitate to put a question in the chat pod and Jean will call it out to me. I'd rather answer them as they come up rather than save them, so that make sure you understand what's going on. All right. Over here on the right are these different ways, these top three are different ways that I can view my content. All files shows me all the folders I own and then collaborating on in Box. So if, for example, that's similar to your CTools, list of all projects or all sites. The Recents tab shows me the files that I have most recently been working in. So that's really nice. And here it shows if something's been updated by someone else since I last opened it, it'll show me there. So I can, or even sometimes in some cases, if I was the one that updated it, it'll show that. So it can help you keep track of the things that you're currently working on and the things that other people are collaborating in, and you can see that activity there. Favorites are things that I mark myself. And favorites can be files or folders. And in the favorites view, here are things that I access frequently, so I have them marked as favorites. And you'll see most of these are folders just because that's how I roll. But at the bottom, there's a bunch, well, actually mixed in, there's a bunch of individual files as well. So you can see that that favorites can be either files or folders. And it gives you another easy way to quickly find the things that you need to access by things that you've used recently. So another way to find content in Box, and as you can see, like for example, with me, I've had, I use Box a lot, so I have a lot of folders in there. And if I didn't mark it as favorite, or maybe I haven't worked on it for a week, neither recents or favorites may help me find things. And if I can navigate through the folder structure. If you notice, these are not alphabetical because I have it sorted by updated. So again, it floats the most recently used things to the top. But even so, if I can't find something, or I don't remember exactly what folder structure it's in, I can use the search function. And the search function in Box is very good. So say I search on CPM, CTools project sites. It pretty much immediately floats down a box showing me, Box's best guess at what I might be looking for in the CPM, with CPM. If you notice, it's looking at titles. So you can help yourself do better searching by making sure you name things in a way that's both descriptive and unique to that particular file or folder. You notice this gets both files and folders. But if you still didn't find it, you can hit the, click on the magnifying glass, and this brings up the advanced search. Now here, if you see, it's also finding files and folders with CPM in the title. But then it will also find CPM in places other than the title. In this case, it's finding it from within the document. If you have a description on a file, it could find it in the description. So it really does a deep search into your files, and it can find CPM anywhere. If you want, and then the problem is you have too much, right? It's showing you everything with the three letters in sequence, CPM. It's like, oh, well, that's helpful. So then Box allows you to filter it by these different things. If you're just interested in presentations, you can filter it by presentations. If you just want things of a certain size or things of a certain date, like just things that are very recent, things that were owned by a specific individual, or if you're using metadata, you can search on that. So it gives you a lot of power in the searching. So it's really, really valuable. So let me go back and just do a regular CPM search. And I'm going to use that to find the folder that the materials for this presentation are in. Oops, I got to get rid of my presentation filter. And so here's today's session, the folder for today's session. And in this folder, I've collected a number of things, including the notes that I keep looking off to my right to access, and some other things. So you can use this as a guide to help you remember what I talked about, since I'm not giving you slides. The next thing is about working with slides. So, working with files. Over here, you see the new dialog, and this allows you to create a new folder, a new bookmark, or a box note. If you have Box Edit installed, it will also show you Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. That's something that gets added in when you have Box Edit installed. Box Edit is something that allows you with a any kind of a document to, because I don't have, let me go here. Let me open this document. And what I'm doing here is just opening the document like this. There we go. Opening the document in preview mode. So it's not actually using Word. I don't have to have Word on my computer or anything. I'm just opening it in preview mode. And this works with over 100 different file types. So the common file types that you might want to open, you can open in preview. If it won't open in preview, you'll get some sort of a message and you'll be able to download it and then open it in the actual application that created it for the less common applications. But over here is the open button, and there it says Microsoft Word, and then it says install Box Edit. So this is because Box Edit is not installed on this machine. I could click this and install Box Edit. At that point, instead of saying install Box Edit, I can just click here and it will open Word with this document. So at this point, any other questions on searching or the new menu, preview? I'm going to move on, but don't hesitate to interrupt me. When I'm in preview mode, another thing that's pretty cool, I have a little floating head here. I'm not sure, can I move it? Yes. In preview mode, I can make comments on this document and post those comments. And then they will show up in this right-hand menu. Or not menu, right-hand bar. And so you can have a discussion about the document right here within the bar. So, someone else could look in here and respond to my comment, or they could, create a new comment of their own. You can use @mentions to notify specific people that are collaborating with you in this folder to, say, hey, so-and-so, check out this paragraph on security. How does it look to you? So you can use it in that way as well. That's pretty much what I'm going to show you about that particular aspect of it. What I want to show you now is probably the key to Box, is understanding how to invite collaborators and how to share files. So these are two things that it's easy to get mixed up. What's the difference between collaborating and sharing? Aren't they the same thing? Not really. In Box's terminology, collaborating means to invite specific individuals or groups of individuals to work with you on a file. And then you have a series of 7 different levels that you can invite someone to collaborate at. So I'm saying, share this folder. I'm going to invite collaborators. I'm going to invite John here. And it pops up his name. I'm going to invite him. I can invite him with one of these levels of permissions. And you look at that and you say, okay, what does that mean? You can click on this little I button here, more information button, and it shows you exactly what each role does. This is similar to the roles in CTools where you have member and organizer and owner and so on. But one of the differences is in Box, these permission levels are set for that particular type of role. And so no matter where someone is an editor, they have that same exact permissions. So you can see here, and you can use here, decide here which level of permission to use. I'm going to use viewer editor. Viewer uploader, if you notice, viewer uploader has almost as much power as editor, except for the delete option. If you want people to freely collaborate, make new files, edit files that are in there, download them, print them, etc., but not be able to remove content, viewer uploader is your friend. So I will go into editor and change it to viewer uploader and send invites. And now John is a collaborator with me with the viewer uploader permission. So, okay, so that's the collaborators, and that's done on a folder level. So now John has the viewer uploader permissions on everything in the folder and anything in any subfolders. So Box uses something called waterfall permissions, which means any permission that's set at one level waterfalls down into all subfolders. So you can't give someone lesser permissions down the folder hierarchy. Keep that in mind when you're designing your folder structures within Box. So you want to give as few permissions as you need at the very top and then add them in as you go down the folder structure. The, looking at my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, then the other thing is shared links. So the other thing under sharing the folder is we did the invite collaborators, get a shared link. And what that does is just provides me with a web link to give access to this folder. I had already done this and I had changed the access type from, oh, I hadn't changed it. Whoops, I'm going to change it. So initially, the access type for this in any folder in the University of Michigan Box environment is people in this folder. That is the most secure setting. So that means that you have to be a collaborator in this folder in order to use this link to access the folder. So that means right now, John and I are the only people in the world who can see the content in this folder. But I'm going to change this to people in your company. Now I'm creating a link that you can go in and look at the content in this folder. The difference is John can edit, add content, he can add files, he can edit things that I put in there and so on, but you can only view and download them and print them. So the access provided through shared links, if you say people in this folder, then it's only the people that you're collaborating with. If you say people in your company, it's only people at U of M. If you say people with the link, it's anyone in the world. Doesn't have to have a Box account for people with the link. It's anyone who gets that URL will be able to access the content without having a Box account. So this is great if you've developed something that you want to be widely available, you want to tear down all the barriers to getting to your file. Shared links can also be set on both on files as well as folders. So you can share a link to an individual file without sharing anything else in the folder with the world or with the U of M. So, and then the last thing in here is remove link. This will just inactivate that web link. It won't touch anything about the collaborators. It won't do anything to the content. It just makes that link not work anymore. And if someone tries to find it, they will get an error. This little gear here gives you some additional advanced settings that I'm not going to go into now, but just to let you know that there are some advanced things that you can do with shared links through that gear. Let's see. Yep, I think we've got that. So let me stop again and ask if there's any questions before I go on to the next topic, which is just to talk a little bit about M community groups in Box. So this is a recent enhancement to our implementation of Box on Campus, and it allows you to use M community groups as collaborators instead of individuals. So the real advantage there is that you can invite a group and then manage the membership of that group through M Community. And you can use that group on a lot of different places. You can use it to send email. You can use it within the G Suite apps. You can use it within Box. But when someone leaves that team or they no longer need access to the things related to your project, you just remove them from M Community and they're removed from all of those different points of access. So this is something we've been wanting to do since we initially got Box. That was one of the first requests that people had when we first rolled out Box in 2012. And we were finally able to, actually we had to get Box to add some functionality to Box before we could do it. And finally in March, we were able to release that functionality. Jean has a question for me.
Jocelyn says, does Box support subgroups in M Community?
Box does not support subgroups. So what you would need to do there is you would invite the parent group and then the subgroups in addition. That's an excellent question, and it's an excellent point because subgroups are supported in other environments. This is something that Box let us know about when we started working on this, and that we made Box understand that this was an important enhancement we would like them to put on their roadmap. So they're aware of our desire to support subgroups. Another thing that is not supported in Box, and this is similar to Google, is external members. So you can put external members in mCommunity and have them, they will receive email sent to the group, but they will not be added as collaborators in Box. They will not be added to a calendar invite in Google, things like that. So this allows you, I really want to encourage you to use mCommunity groups. It gives you a great one-stop shopping that everyone's familiar with to maintain access to these different things, rather than trying to find where are all those places I gave someone permission within Box and remove those permissions in those different places. So at this point, I want to, in fact, let me just show you that a little bit. So share this folder. Invite collaborators. I'll show you how you invite a group and how it's a little different than inviting a user. So you saw me invite John. Now I'm going to invite a group called Box Beta Testers. Oh, I think I'm going to. Box Beta, there we go. And this actually, I'm going to invite Box Beta Desktop, since that's what I'm finding. So if you notice, as I type, it brings up the different matches for it. And I can choose it. You notice it says group there. If it doesn't say group, it's not a group. You actually found a user that may have a name that looks like a group or looks like a group you may have invited. One of those users could be a shared account in Box or Google. They are shared accounts, and we really recommend you looking into shared accounts for your CTools migration, because a shared account, as I mentioned in the very beginning, most closely mimics a CTools site in that it's not owned by an individual. It will last beyond that individual's tenure at the university. So if I try to invite a shared account, it will show up here as an individual because it actually is an individual account in Box. A group account will say group. So now if I select group, and I'm going to make that group just a viewer and send invites. Now that group shows up here. And if I click on one of these collaborators, it will show me all of the people that have permission to collaborate in this folder. Oh, I'm in a different folder than I thought I was in, but anyway, okay. What you'll see here is you see a bunch of people that you didn't maybe realize had access to this folder. Let me tell you what I should have seen, what I expected to see, which is that group. And when I go into the collaborators, I can actually find out who are members of group within Box, as long as the group is not private in mCommunity. Box respects the privacy settings in mCommunity. So if it's members only and I'm not a member, I won't see the members. If it's members only and I am a member, I will see the members. So those settings are reflected in Box. And again, in the documents in the folder that we're sharing with you, there's a section that says other cool features. And there's a bunch of things that if I had time, I was going to share with you, but I'm going to turn it over to John instead. Check those out. And you can search on community.box.com if you want to learn more about those features. There's some pretty cool things. I wanted to add those here because Box gives you the opportunity to do things you can't do in CTools. Might as well take advantage of those while you're learning a new tool. At that point, I'm going to see if I can switch out to John's browser. Is that it?
No, flip to the other one.
Yes, there we go. All right, and turn it over to John.
Okay, so Now that we've learned all of the great features of this new and incredible file sharing and collaboration tool, Box, I'd like to talk a little bit, that's where we're going. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're going to get there with CTools. A lot of you I know have a good deal of content already in CTools. You've been using CTools for your collaboration, even though it wasn't ever intended initially as a collaboration tool. That's what we kind of adapted it for over the years. And to take advantage of the great features in Box, we have a lot of content that I'm sure you want to bring over and get into place soon. So let's just look at how we can do this. If we go in here to the CTools environment, your normal, when you log in, you'll be accessing your various CTools sites. I've got a number of sites here that I'm looking at, but we've created a new tool. Now, in my login, when I first come up, many of you will see this. You'll see this My Workspace. If you don't automatically go to that, you may not have noticed that we've added a new feature to this very recently. There's an item here called Project Site Migration. Okay, this is a new tool that we've just created. It was released only a couple weeks ago and is now available across campus and is just for working with project sites. If you click on this tool, what it'll do is it will open up a list of all of the project sites in which you are an owner. If you're just a collaborator or just a member of a site, then you won't see it there. But if you're an owner, then you have the authority to make decisions about the site, and that's one reason why we chose that as a criterion for defining which sites show up in this list. So every site on which you're an owner, including your My Workspace site, will show up on this list. If you go down the list, there's a couple options here that I want to talk about that what it does. So first of all, it gives you a nice handy way to check on each of these because each of these is a link. So if I click on this, you'll notice that it opens up that site in another tab. I've got up here another tab open. So I've got both my original login CTools work site, My Workspace displayed over here, and I've got the other site. So if I want to, I'm not sure, a lot of these probably are sites that you may not have looked at for a long time. They could have been created for projects that you were involved in years ago. And so we want you to look at every one of them. So they're all here. And this gives you an easy way to quick check and see what's in there. What was that about? Now, once you open this site, there's a couple of options here that you can use. Delete site. If you have, we're really encouraging, if you have some old sites that really are not really much used, they were for something that you did back in 2008 and no one's touched it since and you know it's not really of any value, then or no longer is of the value that it was back in 2008, then you can delete it. By clicking this here, that doesn't actually delete it yet. What it does is you have to save the changes. So if I save changes, that site will be flagged for deletion. It will not be deleted immediately. What will happen is there's a process that runs on a regular basis throughout the day, and so it may disappear within an hour or two, or by the end of the day, but it will definitely be marked for deletion. It won't actually be deleted until, and it won't actually go into that queue until I hit Save Changes. So if I go back here and say, oh, maybe I'm not so sure about that, I'll just take it off. So that's for deletion. What you're probably most interested in here are the download options. So for each of these sites that I have, the download options depend on what's in the site. So here I've got this engaged learning site, and this site contains resources and email archive. So basically there are two things that you can do with your old CTools sites. You can pull down and retrieve your resources, which is the vast majority of CTools project sites out there are composed of resources, and email archive. We found that one of the most valuable things for individuals these days is the archive of their email communications with individuals over time. So if you click on the download here for this one, download archive, what it does is it'll immediately go into creating what's called a zip file or an archive type file. It'll ask me where I want to store it, and let's just put this on my desktop here for the moment. So I can find it again easily. And once that may take a moment or two to download. Now, if you have a very large site, you can see it's already finished. If you have a very large site, this may take a few minutes. The recommendation is if you have a very large site to, instead of using Wi-Fi, you probably want to hook up your computer to a wired connection just for that. And once you go to that, so if I look at my desktop here, should be able to just shrink some of these things. Okay, where's my zip file? Can we find it? Here, it's hiding in the desktop.
I got a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, I maybe should have put it somewhere. Here, okay. Engage learning. So this will open up in File Viewer. I can see all the articles that are there. Now here's the thing about it. In order to, since I'm on a Windows machine, the Windows machine is a little bit different from Mac. If you're on a Mac and you double click on that zip file, it will expand it and create a separate folder with all the content in it. Here what I'm doing is on the Windows machine, it just looks inside the zip file. So if I want to do anything with it, I have to actually go and copy. So I'm going to just do a copy. I'm going to go over here to Documents, My Documents, and so we have a temp. Let's go to Downloads here. Let's just drop this right here, okay, and paste these here. So I'm in a Downloads. I've got a Downloads folder. I've just pasted all the content there. So these are all the things that I grabbed from that site, okay. And it's not a huge list, but what I can do now, if I want to move these to my new box that I'm so excited about. Let's go back here to my box folder. So over here on box, if I want to create what amounts to a replacement or an equivalent of the CTools project site in box, I create a new folder. So I go over here and under New, select Folder, and this is now let's see what it called. So let's say this is part of my enriching scholarship work, and I've got it in there. And I just want to bring this up to this device. So all I do here is a good old drag and drop. And we'll see if the demo daemon is active for myself as well there. So I go in here, highlight these files, and for right now, let's just do these few. I'm going to drag in here to, oh wait, click on my enriching scholarship. So I'm in the right folder. And just drag these guys over and they upload. So moving your content from the CTools project site to your box folder is pretty much just that. You click download, it'll drop the file down on your computer as a zip, or what it's called as an archive or zip file. If all you're interested in doing is saving your content and having it on your computer, then you're effectively done at that point. We're really after people taking their active CTools sites and moving them into box. And so this is all you need to do. Then you open it up, you access it, and you drag it up into your file folder on box. So we have a question.
Alexander says, will the zip file maintain the original folder structure of the CTools site when it downloads?
Excellent question. And we can look at that right now. So I have, so it's still uploading. So we're going to let this go. But yes, in fact, it does maintain the complete file hierarchy, and that's the beauty of it. So if you have just a couple of top-level folders that have many subfolders, it doesn't matter. You just grab the top, grab the whole thing, drag it up, and bang, it's all there and completely replicated. What it replicates is the complete structure. Now, with in CTools on the CTools side, there were it pretty much allowed you to name files and name folders, kind of anything at all. On the Windows side, there are some restrictions on file names. There's certain, punctuation characters it won't allow you to have. So the download process may change and drop some of those illegal characters that Windows doesn't allow. The same thing on the Mac, it doesn't allow certain characters. So there may be some very minor transformations in some of the file names, but other than that, it'll come across exactly the way it was. This is still uploading. Now, as I said, the download was fairly quick, and you want a wired connection. On the upload, because now I have expanded it. Remember, it downloaded as a compressed file, which is much smaller, and of course, it goes down much faster. I expanded it so it's full size now. It's going to take a little while to upload. But as far as the moving, that's it. So I've got just a minute here, and I want to get on to a couple other things really quickly. The email archive, if you download the email archive to your folder, it will bring all the messages, including all the attachments. Each message goes in a separate folder, and the attachments will be alongside it. The zipped mailbox file is a special format if you're using a mail reader such as Thunderbird or a variety of others that allow this thing called an MBox. Unfortunately, it's the same name. There's a special file email box format called MBox that's very popular around the internet. But if your mail reader supports that, then you can actually upload that into your mail reader. The other things I want to look at really quickly here are members. So one of the important things that you want to do on the box side when you're moving your people over, you're moving your content over, you also want to move your individuals over. So if you want to look at, well, who was I sharing that with? And we have a very very carefully designed display here of all the owners. I can, as Mary Beth was showing earlier, how to add people and how to invite people. If I want to invite the same people as co-owners to my site, I go in here, copy this, go over to the box side, and open up the add collaborators, paste those names in, I'm done. I've got all the exact same users that I had, the same owners that I had on the original site. Here I can also see if I'm using M Community, I want to invite those people to M Community, then I can copy it from here. If I happen to be going to Google, if instead of going to Box, you wanted to go to Google Drive, I can get the same list of of owners here. Very simple, very easy. I can also go down here to see the participants who are not owners or co-owners, but instead are just members of the site or have other kind of membership. And so this is the other main thing we want to point out here. Each of the sites listed here, if you open it up and, if you look at the options and it says there are no resources or there are no archive, it just means that that's it. As far as other types of content in your CTools site, those are not supported in terms of automatic migration, just email archives and resources. But the vast majority of project sites out there are handled by this, and so this we believe this is a really valuable tool. It'll make your life a lot easier in terms of moving your content over. And if you have any questions or any concerns about how to work with the tool, please contact Teaching and Learning directly, and we'll be happy to work with you. Okay.
All right. And how would they contact Teaching and Learning?
Through the For Help. So just go directly, put in a regular For Help ticket, and we'll get back to you right away.
Cool. That's the ITS Service Center. All right. So Google Doc has Mary Beth and John put a lot of resource links in the Google Doc, and I will send that out when I send the recording, which will be in a day or two. We will upload this and caption it to our YouTube site, and we'll send out that link as well. And I think that's about it. And let me get back here and stop sharing. So Adam, who is our